Astral projection. This is going to be a series or a podcast about astral projection, my personal experiences, and a place to give people the opportunity to ask questions and to pair up with other people that are in the field. I've been having out of body experiences for 20 years, and I have a lot of experience. And I'm going to talk about something very specifically for this particular episode, the first episode. And this is going to be about the word Aum. It's not going to be 100% detailed because I'm saving it for some other things. But the word Aum or Om is a sound that was written about, arguably tens of thousands of years ago. And the reason why that is because it's a sound that reflects the reverberation as close as it can be to how the universe basically talks or hums. And when you're in energetic form, it has become true to my knowledge and experimentation that when you do things like use sound in energetic form, it's what has been meant to be understood from these old Vedic texts and before that, Hermetic even. Um, it's meant to be understood that sound is supposed to be used there. Now, it can be used in the physical without being energetic form, and it can have a positive effect, most definitely. That's a fact. But when you're in energetic form, it has um, it works faster. And so Om in itself can do a lot of things when you're in energetic form, and if you do it a lot, it's rewiring and upgrading the nervous system, opening up the senses more, and you're still connected to your physical body. So these two, the energetic form and the physical form, are both upgrading at the same time. And there are other mantras and sounds that, when used in energetic form, also do the same thing or a similar thing for different reasons. But Om, as they've said in many texts, which I'm going to be talking about, uh, as well as like even the Bible, um, they are making it very clear that this is something to use. It's a tool. And I had one experience in Cuba. It was my first time experimenting with um, sound in energetic form. So they have a thing in Cuba. Well, you can't go there right now, I don't think, but at the time you could. Um, they have a thing in Cuba called Casa Particulares. The Casa Particular is essentially not a hostel, but a private residence converts their home or a section of their home into a place where people can stay, like travelers. And then they charge a certain amount, and then the for every person that stays at their casa particular, they have to pay the government a percentage. And I mean, there are ways kind of like for them to keep a little bit more money, of course, but they seem pretty scared of their government there, so they're pretty straightforward. Anyway, so I stayed at a casa particular that was in Havana in a very old, dilapidated building, and it was like a converted like grocery store on like a fifth floor of a building that probably wasn't a grocery store for 100 years or something. You could tell it had that element to it. With that, I shared um, a room with multiple people because I stayed there longer because I planned on just kind of exploring that area. But I had different roommates during that time. One was a very scary looking guy that ended up becoming good friends with. And then after a couple more, I had a roommate that was a woman from Belgium, and she was very interested in talking. She had one bed, I had another, simple as that. There was a TV in the corner and an air conditioner, but nothing too fancy going on there. And she wanted to talk about she saw that I was reading, I think I was going through the book Energy Work again or something. I think it was Energy Work. And so she wanted to talk about it. She knew a little bit about the subject. So we talked for hours and like it went on and on and on talking about astral projection and my experience with it. And sometimes I really do like getting an ear that is willing to like think that it could be true. And because I have so much firsthand experience. Now, while we were talking, she was doing a lot of writing, very fast writing. She was one of those travelers that travels quite a bit, and she wanted to document everything to write a book later, or possibly just have it to show their kids and like have a better memory of reflection upon all of her travels. Understandable, I don't do it. So we talked, pretty late, like let's say 2, 3 in the morning, and then time for bed. So I'm in my bed, she's on hers. And then I noticed when I started to drift, the whole room fell out from underneath me. It was one of those times where you have out of body experience where you can't stop it from happening. And sometimes you do because you just want to go to sleep. So, but this particular time, no matter how I positioned my body, I could not stop my energetic body from popping out of the physical. And what happened was I was in the room and she was sleeping. My body was there. I kind of floated up into the center of the room between the beds. And I started to think to be responsible because I got to a point in my practice where it was more important to me to find ways to be practical with using astral projection out of body experiences rather than just having a cool story. I want to have like something tangible so people like are more interested in it, at least the more intelligent people, because more intelligent people usually want tangibility, and I get that. uh, so in the center of the room, I'm like, let's try some mantras. And so I first thing I went to was the Aum. So floating center of the room by the door, I just start doing Aum. Mind you, energetic form, physical body is on the bed, catatonic. And as I do it, I notice that my energy body is vibrating really hard, but not in a painful way, not in a negative way. I've had different experiments where I've messed myself up doing different types of mantras and sound in energetic form. It didn't go well. But this particular case, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise to some that doing the Aum was not was very powerful, was not painful. And what happened was I eventually stopped. I did it maybe 20 times. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And I eventually stopped. And what happened was after I stopped, the sound itself kept going as if like I didn't need to consciously tell it to continue. And so my energy body would just vibrate really, really strong with each Om, but I wasn't telling it to Om anymore. I know that sounds a little bit nuts, but these stories are not like, some of it's not going to be like a Disney movie. Um, so it kept oming for a while and then it eventually stopped. But I got like a very specific type of download. I don't really like that term, but I got a large amount of information in a very short period of time. So what happened was I got about a month's worth of information of what I was going to go through in the next month. And I had, it's like you're getting a memory, but you're getting a memory like a month's worth of memories in an instant. And this is something very hard to explain to people. Now, it was very consistent, and the memories were true. And I tried to change. I'm getting ahead of myself. So staying with me, still being in energetic form, I flew around like outside of the building, and then I would go back to the room every once in a while because I was a little bit concerned because Cuba has like this thing where kind of like a lot of island nations. I'm not trying to be racist or insensitive, but they in their religion, like Santeria, they incorporate spirits and ghosts into their religion. They interact with them. They give offerings. They get help from them. So it's a whole different thing than the US in most cases where, or in a lot of countries, where you don't normally just see spirits walking around because like they're afraid to, because somebody might like come get them, right? Like they think that dying, and then if they don't move on to like the next incarnation and they're stuck, kind of that's where death ends, like ghost form, which is not true, but a lot of them think it's true. So they want to not be found, and they hide. But in countries like Cuba and a lot of other countries I've been to, mostly island countries or islands in countries, they are open. They're a lot more open for being out and about. That's neither here nor there. But I kept flying back into the room just to make sure like I didn't attract any spirits that might like be a little bit malicious or something. It can happen, unfortunately. Again, not a Disney movie. And but so I kept going back, and then I was reviewing in a way like all the information that I got. I was still in energetic form. And one thing that I saw as being kind of like the first memory in a series of memories that go on for a month is a woman that I met first in Belize, was going to contact me and say, "Hey, I'm in the US. Do you want to uh, travel? Do you want to like do a cross country trip? And I'm going to go to LA. I know that you live there. What do you think?" So I knew that. So then I knew a whole month's worth, but like I knew that was like the first part. So when I go back into my body, the first thing I do is check my phone, and this woman who I haven't talked to in months has sent me a message saying exactly what I told you. But she said, I'm gonna be in Arizona, and do you want to do a cross country trip? And I was like, sure, um, let's do it. And I knew that it was gonna end badly between us, but I was very interested in seeing if I could change it. And I found out that I could not. And it was like a whole adventure, cross country tripping, going to cool US spots. She was from the UK, and just seeing if I could change things. And but that's a whole different story. What is important is that by doing the Om-ing in energetic form, opened up these psychic abilities that I had never seen like a month stream in a row before. So when something like that happens, you put a pin in it and you're like, probably going to come back to this. And I, of course, have. And there's been many things to go along with it. But it's an important topic. And I think it's one worth diving into. I think anybody who is an earnest, enthusiastic astral projection person or out of body experience person should use that information. And I think it's best to learn how to induce out of body experiences manually, which is something I teach, but it's not to say that technology is not being used in the same exact way and they're using sound in the same exact way or more advanced uh, by using tech. It's not to say that somebody who's doing something like ayahuasca or DMT can't maybe produce a result like this. I don't think you could, but you might because I don't know. I've done ayahuasca once, and that was like 12 years ago. So, uh, I, I'm gonna leave it there. But if you have any questions, we'll talk about it in the comments, and I will post more things like this and try to feel out my rhythm and my the best way that I can get information like this out there. Um, Thank you for listening.